I actually got into the insurance business when I was 19 years old, fresh out of high school. Came from a single parent background. Nothing was really easy, coming out of high school into adulthood. I knew that I had a lot of drive and focus, but to do well in life, but I didn't know really what industry or career I was going to get into, and thought I was actually going to get into real estate right out of high school. And a friend of mine at the time worked for an insurance office, and she said, you know what, you'd be great over here. We're actually hiring for a telemarketer right now. And at the time I was working in the evenings, and they were going to pay me a couple dollars over minimum wage, and I was going to have better work hours, and it was just, get on the phones and start dialing.
Welcome to another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. I'm Gene Lytle. I am your host. I have a special guest, a friend of mine named Cassidy Ropes. He is a Modern Edge insurance broker. He's an independent insurance agency out of California. He specializes in small business owners with general liability, workman's comp, employee benefits, commercial auto, as well as your personal auto and home needs. Everybody, let's welcome Cassidy Ropes. Hi, welcome. How are you doing, Mr.
Hello, Gene. Hey, thank you for having me today. Excited to be with you and discuss a little bit about our journey. So really happy that you set this up for us.
You know what, Cassidy, thank you so much. When I heard you were going to be on the call, I got excited because I said, oh my gosh, somebody that I specifically know and I do business with. So that is awesome. Yep. So you're calling from California, obviously, right?
Yep. We are located Central California, Visalia. So really right in the middle of, Central California. So a few hours from Los Angeles, a few hours from San Francisco Bay Area. So yeah, right in the middle of the state.
So I would imagine that you can do insurance anywhere, but you pretty much specialize in California. Is that right? Because the laws are so different in California compared to other states.
Yep. California is a pretty big monster in itself. We are licensed in multiple states. We do some business in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, even have a couple producers back east in Florida and Alabama.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, primarily we are California based. The benefit of being in California is we have one of the biggest economies in the world. So there's no shortage of opportunity and business to be had here in the state of California and even locally in Central California.
Sweet. So when we spoke before, Cassidy, I sensed that there was some good stories that we might be able to get from you. Some let's call it pivots that maybe you've had to do throughout the years. So I was wondering if you could share with us your journey of kind of how you got started in the industry and maybe some ups and downs. Again, you know me, I like to hear the pain. So anything that you could show our audience of things that you had to get by to be able to start doing business as of today.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I actually got into the insurance business when I was 19 years old, fresh out of high school. Kind of came from a single parent background. Nothing was really easy, coming out of high school into adulthood. I knew that I had a lot of drive and focus, but to do well in life, but I didn't know really what industry or career I was going to get into, and thought I was actually going to get into real estate right out of high school. And a friend of mine at the time worked for an insurance office, and she said, you know what, you'd be great over here. We're actually hiring for a telemarketer right now. And at the time I was working in the evenings, and they were going to pay me a couple dollars over minimum wage, and I was going to have better work hours, and it was just, get on the phones and start dialing. And I started that, and never had any experience doing that, but really took a liking to it. And
hold on, Cassidy. I got a question for you. You took a liking to dialing the phone.
They call it dialing for dollars,
Oh my gosh,
right?
that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think it probably was because prior to that I was working, in retail stores, and I was cleaning tennis courts at one point and doing janitorial work and doing back office, warehouse type work. So to be in an office setting, an air conditioned, comfortable area, and to be able to just kind of have conversations with people was actually, was really great for me, as surprising as that might sound. But I think it ultimately comes from the desire of wanting to help people. And I think bringing value to people in whatever little way you can, even if that's just setting an appointment with our account executives, right? That was very fulfilling, Gene.
You know what? When you put it like that, now it does make sense because it's refreshing from what you were doing in the past. And I think that's awesome. I know as salespeople get further into their careers, that phone gets really, really heavy. And to
Hmm.
be able to keep picking that phone up every day. But okay, go ahead. So now you're answering
Yeah.
phones or you're dialing out for dollars. I
Yeah,
love it.
so yep, so I'm early in. I'm 19 years old. I'm working the phones. I'm setting appointments. Our producers and our account managers are working the other end of these appointments, and they're actually selling insurance. So I'm realizing, okay, I'm setting good appointments, and the agency is actually making money. So now I'm, taking note of all this. I'm working hard. I'm trying to set 7 to 10 appointments a day for our office staff, and we're excelling at it. And I was really fortunate within 4 months of that, with the success that we had, the opportunity came about to get my insurance license.
Mm.
So shortly after that, I ended up getting my life and health insurance license, and then I got my property and casualty license very unexpectedly, right? Just from this opportunity, this part-time job that came up, and at that point realized, okay, I think I finally now found the path, right? We talked about the desire to want to do something and to be very career oriented and business focused, and now I've now latched onto something as a 20-year-old that I could now learn this brand new industry that I didn't even think of, which is insurance, and really see where this can go. And that was very exciting for a 20-year-old kid.
So that's interesting. So 20 years old, all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you're starting to get licenses. Tell me about that, getting licensing. Was it very hard? How long did it take? What was it like getting a license to be able to do what you had to do?
It's surprisingly a lot more simple than people might think. As long as you don't have any type of a background with any type of criminal records or things of that nature, you could pretty much go to do pre-license training. There's a lot of pre-license courses online. And in fact, I don't even think they're required anymore. They've changed the rules so much, but you can go into a 3-month study program, take some courses, learn the material, and then really you're going to a test center with the state of California, taking the test, passing the test, and then now you're a licensed insurance producer in California. So
Very
you do have to
nice.
take a separate test for life and health, and then one for property and casualty. And there's a number of other different insurance licenses, like limited lines, or if you just want to do one type of insurance. So for me, I wanted to have broad access, so I took the 2 tests that I needed. That was going to give me really the full lineup to sell life insurance, health insurance, and any type of property and casualty product, which could be homeowners, auto insurance, any type of commercial lines insurance. So that, with those 2 licenses, you're able to be pretty active in this industry and start either working for an agency licensed, or get out there and maybe start your own agency or build your own book, which sometimes people will go that route, and now getting appointments or affiliations with insurance companies directly.
Okay.
So that
Perfect.
opens
So
up a
now you're
lot.
20 years old. You are now licensed. Now you're going to take the world by the storm. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so now what? Now we got to learn, not just, it's not just making phone calls and setting up appointments. Now it's like, let's learn this business. We need to learn the ins and outs of our product so we can actually now present these offerings and hear what our clients' needs are, our prospects' needs, and understand how our products can benefit them. So now it's a lot of really continuing that education piece, leveraging other people in our office, studying on our own, and then really kind of learning on the fly. When people come to me, Gene, you're coming to me and you've got a small business and you need general liability and you need a additional insured and blanket waiver of subrogation and these different things. I've got to be on the other side knowing what your need is and how I can take care of that need, right? So a lot of it was, hey, initially, hey, that's a great question, Gene. I know we've got some options that are going to definitely take care of what your needs are. Give me your day or two to research this and gather some information. I'm going to get back with you. Okay, Gene?
Sure.
And a lot of what that was, hey, Gene called me for this information. He wants a quote on this. Sally, can you tell me what a blanket waiver of subrogation is and what an additional insured is and what Gene's actually needing here? Because I got to figure this out, and then it's a lot of that. It's learning on the fly, absorbing the information, getting educated on the product type, what the client needs, and then now competently being able to go to my carrier, get the quotes that you're looking for, and then come back with hopefully a good proposal and kind of being able to explain and talk the talk of the coverages that you're needing, right? So there's a lot of that trial and error and learning and fumbling and making mistakes along the way. And sometimes being a rookie, you're going to show those rookie mistakes now and then, but it's how we react when we stumble and how we pick ourselves back up and improve off of that, which was a lot of my journey, especially early on, and even today. I don't know it all today, but I'm gonna look for the answers to the question and understand those answers so we can do a good job for taking care of our clients. And I would say that's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
If we think that we know it all, we're in trouble, because we want to be competent and be experts in our field, but life is about growth.
Very much so. Very much so. Okay. So now you've got a little seasoned. When did you decide to make the plunge to do it on your own?
Yeah, I was very blessed to spend about 8.5 years at the agency that I worked at and got a lot of great mentorship along the way. Just got to a point in my career where I was seeing the changes in the insurance industry and the hardening of the market, at least with my carrier. I worked with a captive carrier, that's a carrier that's exclusive. So we just represented one insurance company. And if that insurance company decided that they wanted to close their product down, raise their rates, make it harder or more difficult to transact business, I was all in with them. And I realized that there's a lot of other insurance carriers in the market than the one, two, or three that that a lot of us are familiar with, these big carriers. Uh, so I said, you know what, I kind of want to look at the independent insurance model, our channel, and realize, like, hey, there's another 100 insurance carriers out here besides the one that I represent. What if I had access to some of these other carriers? So when I don't have that great option for my prospect, because I'm a one carrier agent, um, I'm going to be able to hit 5 or 10 companies and have a much better shot or opportunity at finding the right product for your specific need. And so between, just reaching a point where I felt like I was kind of capped out in my role and having, growth was going to be hard at the point that I was at with the company I was with, I either needed to become an insurance agent or I needed to become an insurance broker. And the broker side seemed very attractive for me because of, once again, having more options for consumers. right? So that was kind of the big moment of which way am I going to go, and I decided to go the broker route.
So going the broker route, is it similar to having to take more tests to be qualified to become a broker? And more importantly, when you go from one insurance company to where you can go to 100 insurance companies, is there a whole new level of learning, or is it kind of the same for each insurance company?
Yeah, well, a lot of the coverages are fairly universal. The main coverages will, but the every carrier does have different policy forms or policy language, and so you do want to we want to make sure that we're looking at the policy forms and making sure the coverages are consistent with what they're needing, because sometimes there might be some language here or there that might limit somebody's coverage in some way or another. It seems like contractors have a lot of that, where maybe certain coverages are limited or excluded. So each carrier has its own way of underwriting and what they're willing to cover and not cover. So we have to really kind of get educated with those carriers. And even before we get to that point, when you start to look at the independent agency channel, these insurance companies aren't just giving appointments or giving contracts to somebody like me starting out. So you have to really earn your way with these insurance companies. So it starts very slow. It starts with maybe one carrier at a time. So I had to go into the market and say, hey, insurance carrier, I've got all this experience. I've got no clients right now, but I've got a lot of confidence in myself, and I've got all the potential in the world. If you'll just give me a contract and let me do business with you, I'll show you what I can do. And that's not an easy thing to do starting out, especially, starting as scratch. I was literally, putting my laptop on a TV tray, in a tiny little office or at my house, just trying to, build something. And then before we get to that, I'm kind of going backwards here. It's starting my own business. It's getting an LLC or getting a corporation and going through those filing processes and formalizing my business structure, right? Not knowing how to do that, not having those experiences. Those are very difficult, right? So we didn't have chat GPT, and we didn't have a lot of the AI resources we have today. Back in my day, we had to look on a Google search or whatever, and really just kind of piece things together a little bit differently. The data wasn't as forthright or as forthcoming as it is today. So a lot of it is just like, okay, I know I need to do this, so let's go do that. And then I find out off of this that I have this whole other thing that I need to do. And then you just kind of spin off and piece it together to figure it out. Especially because I didn't have any family members or people in my life that were, business owners that were, say, mentors or people that were consulting me. I was learning this thing as there's a lot of challenges in being. At the time, I was about 28 years old without any background in starting a business and trying to figure all of that out, just to get to the point where I can now go to an insurance carrier and tell them all the potential that I had, and then learn that carrier's systems, procedures, coverages, right? So the path really can be challenging for a startup agency, and I think this is relatable in a lot of different businesses, not just my insurance industry, but there's always going to be challenges and setbacks along the way. And it hasn't been easy, but we just work through it.
Very nice. I have to commend you, because so many times, like in the automobile space, you hear the term PhD, and that's because their papa had a dealership, and they were kind of given the path of what to do, and you formed your own path. So I commend you for that. You didn't have all of that. You started it from scratch and figured it out on your way. So I think that's phenomenal. So now, how many years have you been a now?
So we're actually going on our ninth year, so which is really amazing. The fact that we've been here this long, and we've grown quite a bit, right? From that little 200 square foot office, with nothing, to a newer, bigger building, as I mentioned, producers across multiple states, service team, sales team. We purchased an office recently, have about 12 people in our office now. So from that little startup to, a 12-man operation, doing business across not only the state, but across the country, has been quite remarkable. I would have never expected to grow the way that we did. But yeah, we've been very blessed, and a lot of it has been our fundamentals. I think just doing the right thing for our clients, and me trying to set a good example for our staff to do things in a very consistent manner. And I think if we have our fundamentals right, and we're all preaching the same word with our clients, we're always gonna win, even when it feels like we're losing sometimes with our challenges. If we're consistent, that's gonna get us to where we want to go, and that recipe's worked very well.
So when we spoke before, there were two things that were very important to you, and that was your clients, number one, but more importantly, I think your staff. And you talked about building a 12-man team. It probably took time for that synergy and that culture to build. But my question is, how hard was it to get that team to put together? Was that a tough, or did that come natural for you? Because again, you've never owned a business before, and now you're trying to talk other people into doing what you're doing.
Yep.
How did that come about? And you can tell me all about your staff, because I know you had a lot of good things to say about them too.
Yeah, it's yeah, building a team is a difficult thing, but early on, I knew, I think even a couple years prior to starting the agency, that I wanted to kind of go this direction. So there was a little bit of early recruiting involved,
Okay.
talking to friends, different people that I knew, and say, hey, look, there's a great opportunity in this insurance business, and this is what I'm gonna do. This is how we could make money in this business. And a lot of it was like, hey, you don't even have to quit your day job to do this, right? I'm going to go all in, leverage me. You keep doing what you need to do. But you do need to have an insurance license, and you have to have a desire to want to build a book of business, and actually work with prospects that turn into clients. So, that's really kind of where it started, and had a couple friends and colleagues that decided to tie into what I was doing. And then once people started cashing checks, which it took a little while, because we had to once again build these carrier relationships and go through the different challenges, but we had some early success. And once people start making money, and we can show proof behind what we say we're going to do, we've become, it was very validating. So, once our producers kind of got going and had some success, we were kind of off to the races. And then I think recruiting, growing, marketing to other people in the industry about how maybe Modern Edge is a little different, and how the opportunity might be a little bit better than what you might be doing elsewhere. And I know what was going on in other agencies, because I worked in another agency. So I know the industry, I know the challenges, I know the things that were difficult for me, that I felt were holding me back from making more money, whether that was a lack of carrier appetite, or having only so much opportunity to financially grow within an organization, the things that were maybe holding us back on the service side, and just really maybe feeling respected or like we're heard. So I could speak that because I felt it. And as a leader, I'm going to do everything I can to fix maybe some of the deficiencies that I felt, or the things that I felt maybe were holding me back one way or another. And if I can eliminate some of that and create that opportunity for others, and it actually be real, that's how we're going to win. And that has served us very well. There's been challenges along the way. We've had people come and go because not everybody fits those philosophies or the way that we wanted, the way that we work, our standard of expectations. So there's people that have come in and left because they just don't fit that mold. And people change, life changes, and sometimes you just may not be we just may not be the best fit for each other, and that's okay too. You know, but that's those are challenges that are once again ongoing,
Yeah.
that are never going to go away, but we're just going to get better and try to find the right people to grow with. And for us, we could have grown a lot more than we did. I think we've intentionally stayed the size that we are because it goes back to quality over quantity, right? We want quality people that are with us that we're going to grow with for the next 20 or 30 years.
Got it. Are you actively looking for additional agents?
I wouldn't say like I don't have any roles that I need to fill immediately,
Okay.
but we're always looking for the right people if it makes sense, right? If somebody's looking for a new opportunity and they fit the culture that we have here, there's definitely room. There's always room for a new producer or a new account executive that's just looking for an opportunity. Whether, that's somebody that's already established in the business, that's, looking for something new. If they kind of fit what we're looking for, there's an opportunity to bring them in. And I like working with a lot of people, whether that's younger people or even people older than me that might be looking for a new opportunity, maybe a new industry, because I know what it's like to, well, in my case, be young, be hungry for something, but not feel like that door is opened up. And opening up doors and creating new opportunities for people where they didn't otherwise think there is an opportunity is very meaningful and rewarding.
Awesome. Obviously, you got to be a people person, no doubt. So, so tell me about today's environment in the industry because, I'm sure there's lots of things that affect your business. Maybe you can see if how AI is helping or hindering your business. Maybe this on again, off again war, maybe, or something that kind of sticks in my mind is, the fires in California have affected insurance to homes. How do you kind of combat that or navigate through all those types of scenarios?
Yeah, the insurance industry has changed a lot, or it's tightened up a lot, especially since some of the fires in California over the last 10 years. The Southern California Palisades fire was a big trigger. A lot of the insurance carriers ended up shutting their doors, suspending coverage temporarily. You mentioned AI. It's definitely here, but I don't think it's overconsumed the insurance industry yet. A lot of carriers move very slow to adapt AI within their structures. AI could be a good tool to, help kind of maybe compare carriers, compare coverage forms, things like that. But at the end of the day, we're still in a relationship
All
business.
right.
The work that I'm doing, maybe the auto insurance industry might be probably the first part that's kind of moving more towards AI or a direct to consumer model. But people still need and desire to do business with other individuals, and they want another human managing over their insurance. So we're, leveraging the AI where we can in a very limited way, but trying to embrace it as maybe new technologies come out. We use comparative raters and things like that to make our life a little bit easier with maybe quoting with multiple companies and using that for time efficiency. But right now, I think a lot of the challenges are premiums are increasing. Underwriting with insurance carriers is getting stricter. Carriers are asking for a lot more information up front in the underwriting process. And sometimes if the question isn't answered favorably, or somebody's got knob and tube wiring, or they've got an older roof, or maybe they have multiple claims, some of these carriers are not willing to write that coverage. So just having the conversations, and then, that might mean we might have to pivot to another insurance carrier that might be double or triple the cost. And that's the benefit of, I think, being a broker again, is not everybody's going to fit in one box with one carrier with how tight things are,
Right.
you know, and people respect that we're doing the work for them and we're going to the market and going to bat for them, but there's a lot less flexibility in the insurance marketplace right now, with lenience on, a lot of uh, just a lot of the requirements are tough. They're tough right now. So our role is more important than ever to help people as they navigate these challenging times.
So speaking of challenging times, do you see other than pricing? I know pricing is always going to change, but did you see any significant difference in how you had to do business pre-COVID versus post-COVID or during COVID? Any significant challenges that you had to deal with?
The hardest thing is when first there was a lot of stay at home, right? So everybody got used to working at home and remote work. Luckily with our industry, that pivot isn't overly complicated. Some of the challenges would be like, hey, are you actually, the employees that we have at home, are you actually working and being efficient and learning how to kind of track that and manage that?
Right.
But the most challenging thing pre-COVID, post-COVID, really more tied into some of these carrier losses where they started tightening up. What ended up happening at first was everybody was at home, so nobody was driving. So a lot of insurance companies, they were actually being required through the California Department of Insurance to give refunds back to the policyholders. So a lot of policyholders were getting money back for their auto premiums because they were not driving. Well, coming out of COVID, everybody started driving again. And remarkably, a lot of people forgot how to drive. So there was a lot of car accidents that came out of that. So insurance carriers gave billions of dollars back to policyholders, and that ended up affecting their reserves. So then everybody gets on the road, cars start, getting in accidents. And then keep in mind, Gene, we were having supply chain issues. I'm sure you remember that very well. So the auto insurance and the auto industry, parts industry, was really distressed. It was really hit hard because people were getting in accidents and they couldn't get the aftermarket parts or the replacement parts to fix their cars. So vehicles were sitting at tow yards for months, back order for parts. The parts were more expensive. So claims were being handled slower. Insurance carriers didn't have as much money because they just got done giving back all this money. So there was a lot of disruption coming out of COVID in the auto insurance market. And that was something that caused, carriers to pull back. It's harder to get fair premium terms for people. Carriers, once again, were just shutting their doors. So that created a lot of work for us to try to find coverage and manage through these challenges that the market was having, which was just a bigger systemic market issue. So those were really probably some of the bigger issues that we dealt with coming out of COVID. And then you compound that with fire losses and all of these other things, and and clients saying, hey, my rates are getting up higher, I'm being non-renewed. So there's just a lot of challenges that come through our desk on a daily basis, but especially coming out of that time.
Wow. When you start thinking about things, how one thing affects another thing, it could be challenging. So Tell me, Cassidy, your perfect client. If you could say, who are you guys looking for? Who do you guys want to specialize in to help in today's environment?
We like to do business with the value-based client, somebody that's not necessarily transactional, somebody that wants our guidance and our service to help with their risk management. We're in more of a partnership business. So, and we want to be competitive. Our rates are, important that we're competitive with the market, but we want our client to care about the insurance policy that they have and to at least have a basic understanding through us offering the education as we work to issue these policies and really kind of be part of it together. But we'll do business with somebody that's given us a $20 commission check or a $10,000 commission check, and we're going to take care of the needs of those two clients the same no matter what. But they need to be a true partner with us and meet us halfway. And so we are very value based in that regard. And sometimes having less clients is better for us if they care, So we'll work with anybody, any walk of life. They just really have to meet us in the middle there. Otherwise, the relationship tends to not work. But we found by being a little bit more selective in that way, we're a lot more successful. We have better outcomes. We have less claims, and when we do have claims, we have less problems when there are claims because we did the underwriting the correct way with the client, rather than somebody just trying to push something through where they may not be as accurate, transparent, or even, God forbid, honest with us when we're going through those underwriting processes. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. People think, hey, I'm just going to go order insurance. And you don't just order an insurance policy. You don't just buy an insurance policy, and it's not all the same. So, there are underwriting questions, and we need to be able to go through that. And we usually can tell very quickly if the client is the right fit, just as we're going through that process. So that's really, those are kind of the things that we look for. And we really don't know if there's going to be a good fit or not until we kind of go through that process. But as we go through that, we find very quickly if we think it's going to be a good person that's going to be successful for us to onboard.
So I can attest to the fact of you guys, in comparison to some other agents that I've had in the past, clearly different. Clearly, you guys are proactive and looking for ways to be able to help, especially mitigate risk, of course. So I want to thank you personally for you taking over all of our multiple businesses that we have. And we're glad to have you as our partner in the insurance side of it. So I have a question that I like to ask all my guests. And I started with the fact that, let's say our guests just didn't hear the whole podcast, got busy, whatever. They just forget what we spoke about. What is the one message that you would like to make sure you push through, that they leave here today from this podcast?
Man, there's different ways we can cut this thing up, but I mean, understand, don't wait until something goes wrong to understand what you're covered for, right? Understand your insurance policy. I think that's very important, and I think on the other side of it, for somebody that's an aspiring business owner, entrepreneur, as you could hear from our story today, from our conversation, it's not perfect and it's not pretty, but just don't give up on your goals. And really, when things get hard, dig in and lean into it even harder, because it's so good on the other side of those challenges, and it's so worth it. And just be as long as you're intentional and driven towards that goal, it will happen. So anything is possible within reason if you're dedicated enough to the process, and use the challenges, as opportunities to get better, and as scar tissue and as badges of honor, when things get hard, because things can get very good on the other side of that.
That is awesome. And, I share this because even with the companies that I have is, you don't really know much about your company until there is an issue. And it's how that company responds to the issue is what defines really that relationship, because then you'll know if you've got the right partner or not.
Yep. And Gene, firsthand, it wasn't necessarily an easy transition for us to do business together. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of me calling Gene's wife saying, hey, we need to make sure this, that, and the other. And, but you went through that process with me. You trusted the process. We explained why we needed to go through what we need to go through. And those are great examples right? Of just wanting to do things the right way on both sides and being educated on, how you need to be covered and why things are the way they are. So just a great example of how this works and how we both can win and benefit and make sure we're doing things the right way and being covered for those exposures in life by going through the necessary channels and underwriting structure to deliver the end goal.
Awesome. Cassidy, how can our listeners reach you, get a hold of you, your organization?
Yeah, so they can find us on Facebook. We are on Facebook, Modern Edge Insurance Brokers. They can find us on a Google search, Modern Edge Insurance, out of Visalia, California. Phone number 559-713-6120. I would say those are going to be the easiest ways to reach out. And yeah, we're working on building up more of our online presence, but we do have at least some visibility online. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, maybe I can help you with the online presence at some point.
look forward to it.
So thank you for being on this call, Cassidy. It's been a pleasure. I'm excited, and I'd like to hear more of what's going on in your future as far as the insurance industry. And for our listeners, hey, thank you for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. If you like our content, please like, share, comment, whatever button that you have right there. Press it as many times as you can. And we will see you on the next episode.